To begin with, I just wanted to ask if you recall when you first tried acting, and then if there was a moment when you knew that this was what you wanted to do.
I feel like I'm like Valentino with the suit and the chair. It's like, who is this guy?
It's a good suit. It's a sharp-looking suit.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Santa Barbara.
Right, you got to dress up.
Yeah.
But
It was Around the World in 80 Days. It was a play in my grade school that they did, and I played Inspector Fix, who was an English sort of Clouseau character. So I'd have an accent. I remember I had a little Paddington Bear like trench coat that I wore and my father's winter hat, and we had this sort of mustache that we bought at a magic store, and a pipe that my grandfather's pipe, and I had my mother's magnifying glass that she used to read the letters, and I was around the stage, which was the auditorium also that they turned into a stage for this. And I remember really loving it. I remember being backstage, putting on the mustache and reading the lines that the character had. And the lines back then, the ink wasn't even black, it was purple. You remember when they used to be purple ink?
Yeah.
Do you?
I do.
Ish.
I do.
You're like, my dad told me about that. Yeah, that was the first time. I remember being just loving it.
So if that was the case, why not act again for all these years until now? From what I understand, you
25.
finished Georgetown, and now you decide. What sort of led to the decision to at least audition even for Actor Studio?
Well, I did do a couple plays at Georgetown, and one play, a short play called Finding the Sun by Edward Albee at Villanova, which I was horrendous at. I remember I had it was like a beach scene, and all I remember doing was like doing push-ups behind stage. That was my preparation. And then I took a French class in Georgetown. I had this teacher, Roger Bensky, who was great and a real sort of Molière or Ionesco scholar. Mm-hmm. And so we did a lot of stuff in French, like Waiting for Godot, and then just had some great teachers at Georgetown. And I just kind of loved it. And the girl I was dating at the time, I always was, completely enthralled with film. Okay. Wouldn't shut up about movies all the time. And my girlfriend at the time just, I think she put my name in an audition for one of the plays. And I think it was, I know what it was. It was Dangerous Liaisons. Okay. And it was to play Aslan the servant, and I loved it. But again, I didn't do anything other than that. But it was just, those were little experiences. Right. But by the end, I had always thought, well, I'm just going to maybe apply to schools, grad schools for acting. And if I don't get in, I'll move back to Philly and do an internship at like the Schubert Theater for a year. Mm-hmm. That was the idea, much to my parents' chagrin for having spent God knows how many thousands of dollars at Georgetown. Right. But I auditioned for the Actors Studio at the New School at the time, and they had an MFA program, got in, and then so moved right down to New York, took a loan out from the government, and then that was it. And then now I'm in New York City with a bunch of people that also are like me, want to be actors and can talk about movies incessantly.
To prepare for this, one of the things I did was I rewatched your Inside the Actors Studio segment, which was very emotional and interesting, and it sounds like you had a few major things that you really took away from that.
Yeah, for sure. I was sort of flailing, gilding, what do you call those horses that just come out of the
foals or something?
Yeah, something. And gilding, that was like a Lord of the Rings term, but whatever they are.
Right.
And not really knowing what to do.
Right.
And I just got a structure there, and inspiration, and sort of affirmation that maybe I could do this. And it was in New York City, which was just the perfect place to be a young man or woman wanting to be an actor. There's inspiration everywhere. And there are also little pockets of creativity. I think that LA, if I had started in Los Angeles, I think it would have been harder for me, just because I think you have to seek out community, whereas in New York, it's all around you. And that was the structure that I use today. Elizabeth Kemper was my teacher. I still call today, and we went over Silver Linings Playbook for like 5 hours.
She breaks down scripts?
We don't break it down. It's sort of, I'll send it to her, she'll read it, and then I'll go to her apartment when I'm in New York, and we'll sit there for however long it takes and just sort of talk about it, and I'll jot down notes. And then she does this thing called Dream Workshop that she was mentored by Sandra Seacat, who I think started it. And it's a great sort of another way into a character where you use your dreams. That I love doing that. Yeah. And so then she would do like dream assignments, and you just start to just find things, and then her mind never stops, so she'll start emailing me ideas that she has about the character or the story, and that's just always a nice sort of thing for me I enjoy doing that every time I can.
Right. Another good thing about being in New York was almost immediately you had a job, right?
Man, I'll tell you, I was very lucky. I didn't realize how lucky. Yeah, I mean, I was working as a doorman, and I booked actually a pilot before I had to book Sex in the City. This wall-to-wall records with Bo Bridges' son, Jordan Bridges, and Marguerite Moreau, who I then did Wet Hot American Summer with, and the show didn't get picked up, but that was like a first foray into cameras.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then I got Sex in the City, Jake the Downtown Smoker, and yeah. And so I started working and making a living as an actor while I was at school. And I did a play, too, The Wool Gatherer, outside, but while I was at school.
What was the one that sort of took things to a new level? Would it be Alias?
For sure. Okay. No question about it. I mean, I did Changing Lanes. I got to meet Ben Affleck, but that was one day at work, and I got cut out of the movie. And I did 6 episodes of this thing called The Street, which had a lot of hype and Jennifer Connelly and all. But it was canceled before my stuff ever aired. Did tons of commercials that never aired.
Right.
So yeah, Alias. Met JJ. Flew to LA to do the test, and then stayed there and shot the pilot, and then the show got picked up, so I had to move to Los Angeles. So that was a huge thing, actually moving to Los Angeles, where there are so many more auditions.
When you came out of actor studio, when you were first starting, did you feel particularly adept at drama over comedy, or vice versa, or did you feel you were game for anything? You were equally...
I thought drama just because the actors that I admired, I thought of them in dramatic terms, like Robert De Niro or Daniel Day-Lewis or Albert Finney or Tom Courtenay, all these guys. I never thought of Gene Wilder or Alan Arkin or Bill Murray or Richard Pryor or John Candy. Men that I actually watched just as much as these other guys, but for some reason I didn't think I would ever be able to make people laugh, I guess. And then one of the first movie I really got was Wet Hot American Summer, and I met all of these guys who had an odd sense of humor that I felt like I had. That I met like-minded people who thought things were funny, and there was this whole movement in New York City at the time, the Upright Citizens Brigade, that Amy Poehler founded with 3 other guys, and Matt Besser and another bunch of guys. And all of a sudden, I was in this world with Janine Garofalo and Paul Rudd and Amy Miles and Will Arnett and that was Ken Marino, all the guys from the state, and Zach Galifianakis was also around there then, and that just all started to happen. And then after Alias, I got Wedding Crashers, and then all of a sudden, you start doing comedy.
And people see you, they start to see you
as
that. So if there are incremental steps, that would be another big one, Wedding Crashers, right?
Oh, massive. Yeah, it would be Alias and then Wedding Crashers in terms of major things. I mean, Wet Hot was a huge break, and life-changing break in terms of meeting a community of people. But like just industry, like career-wise, Alias and then Wedding Crashers for sure. And then Hangover.
When you were making it, was it clear this was going to be something special?
Wedding Crashers?
Yeah.
I know. I thought it was pretty special because I couldn't stop laughing, and I was watching Vince and Owen, just 2 people at the height of their, primed up. They were just unbelievable to watch. Yeah, I was, and I got to play the heavy in that. I got to play this guy, and it was the first time I remember. There's a story where I make up the story about the sea otter. And that was, and I kind of just improvised like 6 or 7 stories that were based on the treks that I had done. So I hosted this Trek show when I was in grad school also. So I just started like recalling these shows that I actually did, and then obviously, then sort of playing on those Treks.
Right.
But I remember thinking like, oh wow, this is actually working. Like they're laughing, and I felt a part of. So that was a huge sort of confidence builder, Wedding Crashers.
Did that have any role or directly lead to the Hangover films?
No. Actually, Todd Phillips said specifically it was the Kitchen Confidential DVD of the 13 episodes that made him think I was Phil.
Wow.
So you never know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Between those things, you also went to Broadway with Julia Roberts, with Paul Rudd, 3 Days of Rain. That must have been pretty special.
Yeah, it was a do or die moment for me, actually. I think Kitchen Confidential had gotten canceled. And I remember thinking, if this doesn't work, maybe I'm not right for this business, I thought. I thought that there are moments in life when you think like, it kind of does matter if this fails, or you fail in it. And it was hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through by far. And I remember thinking, if I can get through this, it may be as hard, but it's impossible for it to be harder, and it's true. And I've had a lot of hard times since in jobs, you know, when you're like, wow, the pressure's so intense. But I have such a foundation from 3 days of Rain.
I was gonna say eight shows a week, right?
Not even that. Actually, it was the rehearsal process.
Okay.
Not to do. Once we got on stage, it flew, and thank God. And I thought, oh, this feels right. But there was and I was hard on myself, you know. But it was just, man, it was tough.
After that, I believe, is when first Hangover comes out, and that I can only imagine how much your life must have changed after that.
You know, after 3 Days of Rain, actually there was like He's Just Not That Into You and Failure to Launch, or I don't know if that was after, but there were movies, and and then Hangover was, and then I did a play at Williamstown, actually, another play, and then did Hangover right after that. At the time, I remember Todd Phillips called me while I was at Williamstown doing a play called The Understudy, and you know, it didn't feel like it was changing so much, but looking back now, there was definitely a huge shift. You know, it all felt gradual.
You were certainly on people's radars at that point already, but this was like...
Oh, in terms of that, of course. No, you're right. I mean, definitely things changed. I had opportunities. I never would have gotten the opportunity to play star in Limitless, then, you know.
That would be one of the first films that offered you a chance to play a straight dramatic part,
yes,
right?
except Midnight Meat Train.
Right. So there's that.
Let's not forget Midnight Meat
Right,
Train.
well, of course. Well, my apology.
The Meat Train.
So Limitless was an opportunity to work with somebody that you had said was one of your heroes, De Niro.
That's right. I actively sought him out for the role, actually. You know, we had heard that possibly he liked this script, and he liked that it was shooting in the East Coast, and he was free on that slot. Wow. So it's really like a logistical thing. Yeah. And then I was talking to Neil Berger, and I said, you know, we both said, let's combine two characters to make it more appetizing for him, because if he is going to possibly do it. And then I asked to have a meeting with him, and he agreed to it, and I went to his hotel room, and I spoke without stopping for about 30 minutes. I had read the book again the night before, and just pitching him why he has to play that role. And I remember he said, yeah, he's like, give me your cell phone. And then I remember as I was driving home, I remembered one more thing that I wanted to tell him, and I'm such a maniac. I pulled over the side, I was like, do I call Robert De Niro? I just talked to him for 40 minutes without him talking at all. And I called him, remember, and he said, yeah. I said, Mr. De Niro, hey, yeah, who's this? I was like, it's Bradley. Who? I was like, Bradley Cooper, I just left you. And he said, oh, yeah, hey. Yeah, and then I said, yeah, you know, just one more thing. And he's like, yeah, good. Okay, good. I was like, all right, okay, bye. And then 40 minutes later, my agent called and said, Mr. De Niro called his agent and said, creatively, he's signed off.
Wow.
If you can get the deal done, he's in.
Awesome.
And I thought, holy, wow. And so then next time I saw him was at the table read.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Jumping ahead to Silver Linings, do you find that it was beneficial having had that history with him on that?
Oh. No question about it. I don't even think I would have really been able to show up the way I did on the first day without Paul. First of all, I may not have gotten the role. He championed for me to get the role. He was already attached when another actor was attached to play Pat. When that fell out and there was an opening, you know, he actively was like, I think Bradley should do this. Wow. After I read the script, I was pretty terrified, and I knew that, well, at least I knew that his scenes, which were kind of the toughest scenes for Pat in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I knew that, well, I know that Bob being across from him, and I trust him so much, and I could believe saying the word dad to him, that I'll be okay. So yeah, that anytime you can find something real and anchor it in the imaginary circumstance, that's gold for an actor and a director. So it was invaluable.
And then you've got a guy, David O. Russell, who in a way has taken actors who we think of in one way and shown them in a completely different light, particularly Wahlberg. A lot of people didn't take him as seriously as he deserved to be taken until he made
Which is so insane, actually.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Boogie Nights, I mean, it's like a joke.
I know.
That people would ever even think that.
I know.
Yeah.
But I think those 3 or 4 movies that he made with David, that eliminated any doubt. And I just wonder, is it meaningful to you, just as an actor, to know that somebody like David O. Russell has the faith in you to do a part of such complexity as Pat Jr.?
It means nothing short of everything.
Wow.
Yeah, of course it does. It's the reason I became an actor, was the hope one day to work with people like David O. Russell. So the fact that he actually asked me to help him tell the story and be at the helm of it for him was... but he does it in such a way that you're like, he just does it in such a way that feels natural. Yeah. So you believe it. And then once I was on set with them after the first day, it just rocked.
To be directed by David O. Russell, particularly in these group scenes with the family, What is that like? Because I've heard it's unlike any other director you're going to interact with.
Yeah, I mean, you heard a little bit about it the other night. It is, when I was a kid, I think I said this, you know, those movies, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, Deer Hunter, Apocalypse Now, so many films, Loneliness is the Longest Runner. I almost forgot there was a camera. And when you're doing a David O. Russell movie, even though the camera's this close to you and all over it, you kind of forget it's there because it's so incorporated into the reality that you're playing. He creates this communal aspect where the boom operator feels the same weight as the character playing Pat. It all is together, and everybody is necessary, from craft service to transpo to making it work, because we have 33 days and we got to do it. And it just feels like this breathing, almost like organism that's just, you know, organ actually, that's just pumping for 30 days. And you just get into the fray in the morning and you're in it and you let loose and then you come out of it at the end of the day. That's the best way I can describe it. And I say pumping because it has a rhythm to it. There's a rhythm to it. And I think it's maybe a rhythm to how he thinks and communicates. And that was perfect for this movie, because this movie has a very specific rhythm.
I have to ask you about Jennifer Lawrence, because the two of you guys are just amazing, and there was no guarantee that their chemistry would be there, that even the dance moves, everything.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's no guarantee in anything when you make a movie, other than you hope that the money's there so you can actually shoot it. But other than that, there's no guarantee. And yeah, it was one of those things. But you know, if you go and look at David's movies, he does it every time. I mean, Josh Brolin and Tay Leone in Flirting with Disaster, and Ben Stiller and Alan Alda, and you know, and Jason Schwartzman and Mark Wahlberg and I Heart Huckabees, and then The Fighter. There's chemistry always. Yeah, Amy and Mark. Yeah. I mean, just incredible in The Fighter. So he obviously saw something, you know, and convinced everybody else. I certainly wasn't the first choice, you know what I mean? I don't know if Jennifer, I think she wasn't the first, but after audition she became, you know, but she wasn't certainly out of the gate. And yeah, it just worked out, but I think that's all due to David. But she is incredible. So working with her is, I did 2 movies with her already, because I'm not stupid. And at least in that respect. She's just one of the, I mean, I was talking to Josh Brolin last night, who was at the party for Sarah, and he just said, man, it's like, you watch it, it's just like she is not acting. It's just, she's not acting.
So finally, it's got to be a cool time to be you. First of all, Hangover 3's in progress now, from what I understand. But more than that, even this week, National Board Review, Best Actor.
Yeah,
crazy. Huge deal.
I couldn't believe it.
And it's just the beginning, according to what a lot of people are, you know, saying. The reactions have been great. You know, we're now in this award season, and you're all over the place. And I just wonder, you know, to close on the same theme that we started out with, where just step by step as a career evolves, is this, you know, is this where you hoped you would be, where you thought you would be, what you wanted to be, you know, at this stage of your career?
You know, I never thought about it in stages, but this is the dream, of course, to be able to make movies with people like this. That's it. And in terms of the recognition, it's a wonderful feeling. It is. But in terms of the practicality of it, it means that people are maybe going to hopefully come out and see the movie, which is the main goal. I mean, I love telling stories, and I love being a part of the best people who tell stories. And I think I got a chance to do that with David O. Russell. So the fact that it seems that people are, you know, enjoying the experience of that story being told is utterly fulfilling.